Bridges are stronger when built from both sides.
Let's connect.
Let's connect. In the middle.
Hello and welcome to Building Bridges, a show on the Greensboro Television Network that highlights ways members of the public and members of the Greensboro Police Department can connect with each other. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. In past episodes, we have talked about GPD's transition to neighborhood-oriented policing, or NOP. Now, NOP is both a philosophy about police-community relations and a way of keeping our city safe. NOP involves assigned officers to certain geographic areas so they can get to know the people who live and work there, so they can build trust and familiarity with each other. And so they can also work together to solve problems and reduce crime. Today we're going to meet some officers and some guests who have been working under the NOP concept long before NOP was NOP. So we're referring to the Police Neighborhood Resource Center, or the PNRC. Our guests today know a lot about PNRC and are here to share why this police-community relationship is so important to our city. If you don't live in neighborhoods with a PNRC, don't change the channel. Stay right where you are. We can learn from the success of this program. Joining me are Sergeant Ryan Todd from the Greensboro Police Department, Ms. Ernestine Surgeon, a resident of Claremont Courts, and also today we are talking to Ms. Nancy Johnson, who you sort of
Regional Property Manager, correct.
So in other words, you're in charge of the, of the housing authority.
Sort of, kind of, but no.
Right. Welcome you all to Building Bridges. And Sergeant Todd, let me get you started by asking you about the PNRC.
So the program began around 1989. PNRC, and that's probably one of the oldest partnerships that the police department has with any other agency. I don't think there's any other agency that we've been friends with for so long. So it was what, 25, 26 years that we just 27 years they just celebrated, which is, I think, a true testament to the wherewithal of the program and the commitment from both parties, the citizens, the residents, and the police officers who have been a part of it. And so it's one of those old stays when you become a Greensboro police officer and you start to learn about the culture and the different aspects of what this agency offers. You eventually learn, what is PNRC? What is that Police Neighborhood Resource Center? What does that acronym even mean? It seems to be outdated. And what it is, it's an unchanged acronym that kind of holds true to something we started back in the late 80s.
Good grief.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it working? Obviously, if it's been going on since the 80s.
Undoubtedly it works. And the philosophy ultimately is this: within the city of Greensboro, in the bulk of it, there are 4 different districts, and each one of those districts has 3 different zones. And so there's a big zone. When I started here, I was a 110 car is what they called it. D1 central area, big chunk of the city, right there in the middle of it. And the object for me was to get to know as many of those residents as I could. Now that's a huge task at hand because I'm one police officer, and that size of the city for me, which you talk about being past A&T, so right there around English Street was where we ended on the east side. The west side went all the way to Holden Road. The north side would have been Fisher Avenue, and the south side would have been, well, gosh, at that time it was Florida Street.
Oh my goodness.
So those are my citizens, and those are the folks. I need you to know every single one of those folks. And that's a huge task, and we ask it of officers, and I gotta say, by and large, they do a fantastic job of getting to meet as many people as they can, given the constraints of modern policing, which is answering calls for service and being in a car. The car does separate you from the public.
It does.
So the NOP model, and ultimately what PNRC does, is it breaks that down into smaller pieces. I have 10 officers on my squad, and 2 of them are dedicated to working each of the public housing sites. And there's 5 big sites in the city: Hickory Trails, Smith Homes, Hampton Homes, Ray Warren Homes, and Claremont Courts. And so those 5 big sites are kind of spread out throughout the city. And there's some other smaller satellite sites as well that they're responsible for. But each one of those big sites, just take Smith Homes, for example. There's 2 officers who are assigned strictly to Smith Homes, and their job is to know those residents. Now the advantage is they have far fewer residents there than you would have to have if you were me. If you're a 110 car, I got thousands of residents.
Oh, goodness.
But
and do you know them all?
There's no way. It's impossible to get to know all of
gracious,
them. You meet the people that you have happen chance with to have a call. or that you may meet just through walking around, or through your own efforts to go out and meet the community. And I got to say, our officers do an unbelievable job of doing that. But just the grandeur of what's required of officers, it's almost impossible to do.
That's what I'm thinking. Wow.
Right, and so the advantage to having something, this system, the PNRC system, and the reason why it's worked so well for so long is it really does pare that down. It's only Smith Homes, which how many?
430 units.
430 units. So 430 families essentially live in Smith Homes, and I ask my officers in Smith to know them all, and they do. It's unbelievable to me when something happens, when we'll get some sort of report of something that happened on one of our days off. I can say, Mr. and Miss Johnson, for example, had a fight, and they'll go, oh yeah, well, he's been drinking, so he must have gotten out of jail, he's back home again. And they know those
So you
situations,
know
they
all
know
these
those
people.
families.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
And it's a huge advantage to police officers to know those people. There's a familiarity, right? Whenever we encounter folks, there's this sort of disconnect already with the police saying, I don't know this guy or this girl. And I know they're law enforcement, I know they've got a gun, and maybe they don't like me, or maybe they do, or maybe they're having a bad day, or whatever. But when you have the familiarity with knowing, this is my milkman, this is my mailman, this is my butcher, or my tailor, or my whoever, you have that familiarity with them and go, okay, well, here's Officer Cox and Officer Garrison, I know them. And so, yeah, we're fighting again today, but you know what? He did this. And they're already opening up that door to have a conversation with you. And it does us a world of good to have already built those relationships. So I think the tried and true testament of why it works is because we do build very strong relationships with the people in our communities. And that's what they're required to do.
Well, I'll tell you, that sounds a lot different than what a lot of people think
Sure.
a police officer
Sure.
is doing. Why do you like having this kind of program in the housing authority?
It's such a great concept, the personalization. All the officers know the community, the managers, and it's that just being able to talk freely about situations and problems and how can we make things better for our communities. I know Ms. Surgeon can attest that it's a good close-knit relationship, and it's benefited our communities throughout the last 27 years.
Has it been difficult to get the residents to accept police officers being a part of their families?
Yes, we've had some resistance, but I've had more success stories than resistance once the educational part is placed. So having constant meetings with the officers as being a PNRC manager, and that's someone who's a resident on that property who actually works with them a lot closer. So my closeness to them has allowed me to dissect the actual law enforcement end of it. How do I approach the situation and, of course, educate the residents at the same time? Because it's important that they understand it's not about coming to arrest you. It's not about trying to get you out of here. Management works very, very well with us all together. And we find that three triangle, the residents, the police officer, along with housing authority, we work very tightly together to ensure that we are above nothing else but the truth. We don't go above the law. They don't go above their station and jobs and start throwing their weight around. And as residents, we are bound by a contract to uphold their standards. And I signed my contract to keep my mouth closed so whatever's shared with me stays there.
Right.
So the only thing I could do is come to them with the scenarios and try to bring those up so that way I can try to educate the residents. But we've had some wonderful relationships. The children have been phenomenal. If I don't get to say anything else today, they have been the best group of children
How?
ever.
Tell me what you mean.
Well, they will come in and there's little badges that are taped and stuck on just like a little tape, and it's a real gold badge. These children would do just about anything to get a gold badge. They have been deputized to keep an eye on some things. I've had 3 little girls this summer that were determined that we needed to know someone was in one of the empty units. And they were like, this is not right. And they would march over to the office and get the officer. And I'd be like, girl, they waiting on you. I go run over there, knock on the door, tell the police officer, y'all got company. And they would go in there and tell them, that's not right. They shouldn't be in there, right? And they go, yes, you're right, and march right over there with them. And it's that type of relationship we want to continue to build. If I can get the children to trust an officer, if I can get them to do that now, they will be the most phenomenal children that grow up to be some adults that understand this is not the world the way it is that you see it. It really isn't. So that's my biggest goal.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I can imagine that children would get pretty excited about
Sure.
being
They do.
able to do something like this. I've never known a child didn't like to tell it.
And they're open to it. They're really, really open to when they meet a police officer. There's a certain age break. You'll see the older they get they're getting older as a teenager. They're a little more standoffish. They don't want to seem like they're hanging out with the police. But as young folks, I know that they remember those encounters with us. And we don't want their first encounter to be something that's an event that something's gone wrong, right?
Right.
I think a lot of young people will make mistakes and they will have encountered the police during that. We don't want them to think that this is an incident where it's going to go sour because a police officer is there. They've met a lot of police officers before. If you live in a GHA property, you've seen police officers many, many times while you're there because our officers are always on scene. They're always talking and integrating and communicating with the public. So it's not the first time they've dealt with a police officer if you live in a GHA property. You've seen us, you know us, and those encounters were positive. Maybe we gave you a badge or some candy, or maybe we took you to a football game or took you fishing. We do regular community outreach programs with those folks. So it's a very positive foundation that we've built with the kids, and I think she's really mentioned
That is great. I'd like to go fishing.
Higher.
For sure. Well, tell me, how long did it take you to get the properties that you manage to agree to have police officers around them?
We developed that concept and worked, closely with the Greensboro Police Department and sat down and what do we want this, to actually look like? And it's building that positive relationship and outreach to the community, outreach to management, and keeping that communication line open. I know PNRC, they'll ride their bikes through the communities, walk through the communities. I've done several walks with the police officers myself as management, just to get out and to know the residents and let them know we're here. And we've done informative handouts of information, which I think have been very helpful in the last year.
And they're in uniform.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
know who they are.
We know who they are. They're in uniform. Of course, management's dressed in management clothes. And developed a lot of good conversations from those outreaches.
Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful. Can you tell of some kind of difference that's been made because of this program?
Yes, I definitely have seen tremendous differences. I grew up north in Harlem, and in that area, just as he was saying, some of the cars alone make it difficult for you to interact. So I used to become a part of their program as well. And doing that with them as a civilian gave me a greater insight on why we need to do it. We need to do it so that they would also understand that we have some people out in the street that do appreciate our service. And if you don't understand that, when trouble comes, you won't appreciate it when the good times actually happen. So I grew up with PAL, Police Athletic League. That league had us playing with the officers in the street. So I grew up with officers out there with a stick ball, with chalk. They come out with bubbles, and they would come out and they would just close down a whole street. And that would be our play area for the entire summer outside with the officers in full uniforms.
That's great. Now,
Running
you talking about
around.
something that happened recently, or?
No, this is when I came up as a child. They don't even do it like they used to. As far as I know, I don't believe they even still have it. It's just about as dinosauric as the
As
the
the
DEER
dinosaurs,
program.
yeah.
Yeah, the DEER program is fading out slowly because of so many other things that are going on that are negative. It makes it hard to project the positive. So that's where we struggle the most, is keeping the positive. So having the officers, we've had our officer here, bless his little heart. We didn't take it for y'all. Doing the running man outside in the summer.
You can do the running.
Oh
can't.
my
I
God.
told her I don't like this new running man challenge. I know the old running man.
Right.
Ladies, I wouldn't do the new one. I'm being
So
honest.
it was just absolutely hilarious. It just gave everyone such a release because they need to know that they're human beings at the beginning and the end of their shift. And everything in between is all about, I'm in this uniform, but I'm still a human being in it. And that's what really brings it down home. And they've gotten off their bikes and they've walked through the neighborhood and they've gotten on the children's bikes and they played ball with them. We've had so many wonderful interactions. I invite them to the meetings, everything that we do, every cookout. I make sure the officers are on the property because I really want to continue to build that camaraderie between them and the residents.
Who wouldn't want an officer who can do the running man?
I don't know.
I cannot
I
imagine.
can't imagine.
I can't imagine. You teach me how to do it.
Right.
When we get off. Okay. Well, it's time for us to take a quick break. Please stay with us. When we return, we'll have more information about the PNRC. Stay with us. Welcome back to Building Bridges. That's a monthly show that brings together police and community members to make our city safer. I'm your host, Sandra Hughes. Today we're talking about GPD's Police Neighborhood Resource Center. I think you call it PNRC. Tell me about the type of events that you do that helps make this a profitable and successful program.
Aside from just the regular community engagement program, with just meeting and greeting and knowing the folks in those neighborhoods, we often set up our own community engagement events. And a lot of that used to be hosting some sort of cookout for the whole community where the police department could come in and feed folks and get to meet, not just going to their community meetings and talking about crime stats like we do everywhere else, but we host specific community engagement events. And some of them are very old and heralded legacies within PNRC. We figured out what worked in probably 1992, and some of those things we've been doing, and some things we've done new. Probably our oldest program is a fishing program, where our seniors, we take our seniors, because there's 3 sites that are specifically for seniors, Hall Towers, Gateway Plaza, and Stone Ridge. And then there's other seniors that live on other sites, but we take just those folks fishing. We set that program up and take them fishing and have a good time, and we probably don't catch a lot of fish most of the time. Some folks, sometimes, you never know. But we have outreach programs with some of the elderly folks in those communities. We do specific outreach programs with some of the younger folks as well. This year we brought back our Badges for Baseball program, where we partner with the Boys and Girls Club. And some of the kids who live around the Boys and Girls Club go there and play, and we play baseball and kickball and a game called Quick Ball with the kids in those neighborhoods and get to meet them. And we were very, very fortunate recently. One of our officers started a community engagement program with the Carolina Panthers and with their foundation, and unused tickets they sent to us. And so we got to take 7 officers and 7 young people from Greensboro Housing Authority sites. We all went to see the Panthers game. We got to go see oh gosh, I can't remember which game it was. Oh, the Cardinals. Cardinals versus the Panthers right there in Charlotte.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It was fantastic. And we spent probably 10 hours that day with a young person from that community. And rather than that 30-minute interaction, we got to know a lot about their life and their parents and how school's going. And they got to learn a lot about us. So we've made, I think, what is huge investments, community engagement-wise, with the people that we serve.
That sounds wonderful. I'll tell you, I grew up in Morningside Homes, which now has changed over to another community.
Willow Oaks
Willow
now.
Oaks. And I do not remember, now of course there's a lot of things I don't remember, but I don't remember seeing police officers in our neighborhood unless they were called to come break up some kind of crime.
Right.
Yeah.
But playing ball with kids and doing all that, I didn't see it. So how did you come to the decision to bring officers into your communities to help prevent crime?
Right. It was a joint effort, and with discussion with the Weed and Seed program, which was a grant that was given to the Housing Authority and entered into it with the Greensboro Police Department to bring those services to the community and have that direct involvement with the community. So as you know, Officer Ryan Todd said, they get to build those special bonds, and without those special bonds, we couldn't do some of the things that we've done.
Exactly. Can you see a way that it's helped your community by having police officers who are there that you know help your community stay a little safer than normal?
Yes, it's been very phenomenal in the responses that I would get from a lot of the residents. Things would happen off hours, weekends, and folks are not too sure what to do. And when they have someone that they can call on in uniform holding down their position, they can actually go directly to them. And that helped a lot, because a lot of times you don't always feel as comfortable because you're never sure what's going to happen. At least then they get an opportunity to share with them, and also the residents get so much interaction with the officers that it actually plays backwards as well. The officers get an opportunity to go back out to them and say, well, we already heard what happened. The streets are talking. So when we get these responses, then they can now feel more comfortable to share, and we can help to secure that their families are safe, that the children are safe. But I do appreciate the fact also, if there is something really wrong that happens that's tragic, bad, or indifferent that would cause Housing Authority to have a question about you staying on board, the officers can intervene, and they help out tremendously. If there's anything that they can provide for that resident and securing the children, securing their apartment along with management, we've had those kind of incidents. We've had some tragic losses, and these things are working in our benefit because they will come out and they will support. and they will show that love that most people aren't expecting. Like I said, they are human beings under these outfits. It is not their life. They are not hiding behind the shield. This is just a job that they have, but they do it with compassion and love. And I think that that's what's missing, is understanding that they really do care.
I have never heard anyone talk like that about police officers. I mean, I've heard nice things said, but you're making them sound like they really are a part of everything we do and making it better.
Sure.
Is that why you wanted to do it in your housing authority?
Yes, yes. The housing authorities, I guess, have been plagued with, being a spot for criminal activity and crime. And with our relationship, we have been able to minimize that. We've done dramatic changes throughout the last 27 years with having police on site.
That's
and
incredible.
available.
That's incredible. Is this just in this city? Do you know of other cities that do this?
I don't know of any other particular venture or relationship, so I don't want to speak and say yes or no. But I do know I've been with the Housing Authority for 10 years here in Greensboro and have been, involved in this relationship for quite a long time.
Well, that's great. So do you have future plans to change anything or do something in a way that might make you more welcome in the communities?
So one of the things that's been recent as people come on the squad is I'm requiring them all to have their own specific community engagement program. And the officers themselves. If I got a new officer, if Officer Hughes just came to me, I would say, all right, Sandra, what is it you're passionate about? What is it you can do to infuse a new culture into the housing authority? Whatever it is you're into, I want to see you make that passion come to life for some of the folks who live there and make a sustainable change in some of the lives of the folks. So rather than us just having 2 or 3 programs that we run, I have 10 officers, I want 10 programs.
Wow.
And so it's starting to happen though, because I found that officers are passionate about things and they like to see other people get into what they're into. Whatever it is you're into, you get to share that with the community that you serve, and you can break a cycle, which is ultimately what I found to be something of a culture, where people don't want to learn of a new sport. They don't want to try a new food. They don't want to get outside of their comfort zone. And officers going and inviting them to do some things that they may either, one, never get the chance to do because they couldn't afford it, or would never think to do because they would never have considered that being a fun thing. I want those officers to do that. And so far, I've seen a great deal of success with that. So I think if we're going to look at what's new, I know the police departments across America are having to make a push to be further involved in community engagement. We have to do what Ernestine already knows. We have to humanize our badge a little bit. We have to make relationships better with the community. And that is where I think the PNRC stands. I think we are the tip of the spear when it comes to doing community engagement efforts. And I'm going to require my officers, each of them, to do that. To make great relationships with the public by each of them having their own program.
Is that hard to do, to get the officers to go along with that program?
Not a bit. I think encouraging them to do it and saying, you can do this. I don't have to run these programs. As a sergeant, I'm not required to do all the logistics and everything. You can do every bit of this. And it teaches those officers themselves some of those leadership skills that they need to further themselves in their own career. So it hasn't been hard once you kind of open the door and say, you're free to do this. Anything you want to do. If you're into wrestling or Army recruitment or whatever, then go out there and be a wrestling coach. If you played baseball in college, go show some of these kids to play baseball. Go do what you got to do. Saturday mornings, I partner with the Greensboro United Soccer Foundation, and Claremont, where Ernestine lives, has a large community of first-generation African immigrants. So a lot of those kids don't want to play basketball or they don't want to play American football, they like to play soccer. Well, it just so happens that there's a nearby church who partners to have a soccer game every Saturday morning.
Oh, that's
well,
great.
I love soccer.
That's great.
So I go out there and play soccer with those kids on Saturday morning, and they get to meet me as a person, they get to meet me as a police officer, and then we're doing some different cultural things, getting some of their friends involved who would have maybe played soccer in that community.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, what do you see down the road for your community, communities like yours, and the police department? What would you like it just the way it is now, or if you see some changes?
No, I see a lot of changes. What I see coming down in the horizon for us is that we are going to be a much stronger knitted group. We're going to start to infusing even more of not just their talents and their gifts, but we want to continue to show the children that part. It's wonderful people like yourself who have left out of the authority and grew up in places that most people would never have known. That's my biggest gift to them. You are here now Don't let this be your last stop. This is just a jump off for where you can actually excel to. So I want them to always understand some people have walked through the very same streets, played in the very same yard you did, hit that same tree, probably could find a mark that they made on it. You need to know that it's history here. And you could be a major part of it. And then those who have blessed us enough to come back and blessed us with their gift, their talent. They've worked, they've labored, and they come back to say, I want to give something back to a community that was there for me when I was coming up. Because we've all had different times. Your time being in the housing authority, my time being in the authority up north. Now this time has been phenomenal raising my children. I wouldn't have asked for anything different, not for the children. And because they are our future, and so much, housing has blessed us with so much. Computer labs. We have an opportunity for the officers to come in and open the doors and have meetings, and we'll have other engagements, and we'll do things that will have them to be safe. Because that's the first and foremost. If we can keep them safe, we can actually engage them to do some other things. So we don't want bullying. We want you to be able to understand what to do when something tragic happens. We want you to feel comfortable coming to management and saying, I need some help. There's something going on. And that's what I got when I first got here. The officers ensured me that if there was a resident in trouble, call us. I've known them to give mattresses to someone who was in trouble.
my goodness.
I've seen them go out of their way to find children to give them bikes to after everyone has given away all the Christmas stuff. And they were like, I got to find these children. They will go out of their way. Thanksgiving, they want to find who needs Thanksgiving. Is there somebody you know? See, they can come to the management, and they can come to those of us who work with them and say, which family really needs some help so we can just be a blessing to them. That just does something to me that y'all don't even understand. That does something different to the inside of me to know. And I'm so proud to be able to tell people from one end of this East Coast to the other, because I got family all the way from the top to the bottom. Y'all don't know nothing about where I live, but if you ever get a chance to shift and move, Greensboro is where you want to be, to have this type of love to be shared.
Amen.
Looking forward.
What do you say? Amen.
Looking
And I'm
forward.
sure you're certainly promoting more and more of this in your other housing.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We have 19 communities throughout Greensboro, so we're divided up. And like I said, our residents know the police officers, and they know the ones that service the area. And just building that relationship and being able
Yes.
to talk openly.
So how many residents do you have? Do you know?
We have 2,209 units. I don't know the total number.
6,700. If I remember from the PowerPoint you guys had.
700, give or take.
Yeah.
So it's quite a
Individuals.
large housing
It
authority.
certainly is. I didn't
Yes.
realize it was that large.
Yes.
Of course, like I said, when I was little, we thought the only housing authority or the housing project was right where we lived.
Right,
Right.
We
right.
didn't know about anybody else
Right.
or what anybody else was doing. But that's, to me, is very exciting, because when I sit here and listen to you talk about the things that you're willing to do to connect with children and their parents and all that, it's phenomenal to me, because I don't really hear that. And when you watch TV, watch the movies on TV, I don't think they're showing this kind of relationship. I mean,
Not at
what do you
all.
think?
No, you don't get to see it in other townships. You don't see it in anything else. Every once in a while, there'll be a glimpse. There was some officers that were giving people cash out on the highway. I think everybody just was losing their mind, because they would pull them over like they were going to do something or write them a ticket and give them cash, and the tears of joy would just burst out. But see, for me, those are just spurts. I get that all the time. It's a regular occurrence to have someone to come in and actually get a blessing. We did an ice cream social with all the children, and this was after free lunch, and I don't believe there was a child that wasn't excited. Ice cream everywhere. And these are the type of moments that we want to continue to have with them, that we care enough about you, even with simple things. Not just the big things, the tragedy that happens, but just to see a child smile, just to be there.
And it's got to make the parents feel comfortable.
Yes, it makes them feel a lot more safer when their child says, well, I was just out there with the officers, and they know them by name, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the good part too.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
I think it's wonderful, because we talked recently to officers who are in the schools, and you know they have their hands full.
Sure,
They
yes.
have their hands full, but I think you've probably got your hands full too.
It has its moments.
Now, are you at Claremont?
So I don't have any one site because
see.
of all 5 sites, I have 2 people embedded in each one. And so I get to spend my time wherever, but I usually try to go to the elderly sites if I have a site that I got to claim.
Okay.
I try to take care of them because there's no single officer assigned to them. So when they have an issue, I try to step in.
Yeah, well, I think what you all are doing is absolutely wonderful. I'm ashamed to say I didn't know about it before. And I've lived in Greensboro my entire life, but I think what you're doing now is absolutely fabulous, and it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much for being with Building Bridges today. And if you ever have anything great going on, come back. We'll talk about it again, because I don't intend to go anywhere. We have to ask,
I hope not.
we have to ask the police if I'm going somewhere.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, now, Sergeant Todd and Ms. Johnson, Ms. Surgeon, thank you very much for giving us all the ideas that you have going on with the PNRC. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I like the picture that you painted. I like the things that you're saying about your community and how they're going to benefit from all of this. It's just wonderful. To you at home, we want you to get to know the officers that patrol your area, the relationships you can have with them, and the way that they can help make your community safer and a fun place to live. I want to thank all of you out there for watching today. Building Bridges is for you. It's for you and the police officers around you. So thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Sandra Hughes. Be safe.
This show was funded in part by the Greensboro Police Foundation, an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance Greensboro's economic strength by promoting the safest city possible for its residents, workers, and visitors through support of the Greensboro Police Department. For more information about the Greensboro Police Foundation, visit www.greensboropolicefoundation.org.